Okay, tell me your name.
Jessica.
Okay, and you were in foster care?
Yes.
What age did you get taken into foster care?
I was 15. It was the second day of my sophomore year.
Right. And why did you get taken into care?
It actually started out where I lived with my biological mother and her husband, and they had two younger siblings. And because of things that were happening at home, in our very unstable relationship, and some abuse, and just unhealthiness, I began to kind of act out. But I was also a typical teenager,
Right.
borrowed your parents' car at night and different things. And so ended up fighting a lot with my parents, and they took me to a shelter and dropped me off there, really looking for me. I feel like it was a lot that they knew I had some secrets that they didn't want me to share. And so I feel like it was kind of a tactic of helping me to keep my mouth quiet. But while I was at the shelter, I ended up telling everything that had happened to me, from all of the abuse while I was growing up to things that the abuse had changed, and what had been going on more recently. So because I told everything that was going on, obviously they had to report the abuse to the Department of Health and Human Services, and the state decided to take custody of me. So
Right.
that is how I entered the system.
Yeah. So you were taken in when you were 15,
Yeah.
and you aged out.
Yeah, yeah.
Were you ever placed in a home with like a foster home?
Yeah, I was. Straight from that shelter, I was there for just a couple weeks, and then they found a home in Superior, Nebraska. It's just a nice, tiny little town right on the Kansas border. It was a single mom, and she had 4 girls, and I was raised in a very male-dominating family, so moving in with a bunch of women was very different, but it was very safe for
Probably
me.
good for you, the
It
perfect
was
home.
perfect. Yeah, I needed that. I needed that safety, and my foster mom was just amazing. We did a weekend visit, and we were able to talk, and I had kept a lot in for 15 years, and I had went through a lot of things, and I didn't really talk about things. I never felt comfortable with adults. I didn't share anything that was going on with anybody, and she was really easy to talk to, and I was really able to open up to her, and we created a very, very strong bond. And so I stayed with them for my sophomore year, and then half of my junior year, and I was a people pleaser. I had dreamed my whole life of having a family that I felt safe in and that I felt really loved, because I knew what was going on was wrong, and I knew that I didn't really fit growing up, and I just, every young kid dreams of something a little bit better when they don't have a good family, and just a family that loves you. And so I'd always dreamed of a family that would. And so when I moved in with her and her girls, it was like my wishes had come true, It was my Disney story or Disney movie. And so I wanted to be perfect, and so I tried to be nice to everybody, and I tried to be happy all the time, and I worked, and I tried to do good in school, and I never did anything that I would get in trouble for. I just tried to be the perfect kid because I didn't want to mess it up. And it ended up catching up with me, because I also then didn't deal with any issues. And with that many years of abuse and some of the things that had happened to me and not dealing with it, it just piled up inside, and I didn't really know how to deal with it as a kid. I was just a teenager, I was just a kid, and so I turned to kind of self-destructive behaviors. I was very bulimic, and I was a cutter, and I tried to hide those things as well, because I wanted to control everything myself and have everybody think that I was perfect and that everything was perfect. So, but because my foster mom knew me very well, and she had a good relationship. I had a CASA volunteer as well, who's an advocate.
CASA, I keep hearing that name.
Yeah.
What are they?
Court-appointed special advocates.
Right.
And they're just a volunteer who advocates for the interest of the child. And they typically have one case, and their primary goal is advocating in the court. So she was kind of my advocate in the court system.
Yeah.
So, but we had a wonderful relationship, and her and my foster mom had a wonderful relationship, and because they knew me, they were able to tell that something was going on and that I was hiding. And so they did some digging into me, and you know, even in my room, and figured out what I had been doing. And so because they loved me and I didn't feel like this at the time, they got me help. And
so jump to, you're 18 years old, and you're aging out.
Yeah.
And what was your thought process? What was going through your head? What were your fears?
Well, at that time I had worked my way through treatment, and I was back living with my foster home, my original foster home, which was wonderful. And I don't think I really realized what was coming. You know, when I was growing up in my biological home, I was the caretaker. I was very responsible, you know, and I felt like I had a lot of responsibility on me. And so I thought when I aged out, I would be able to just take care of everything, and I thought I knew it all. And I also, at that time, had met my biological father for the first time in 15 years, and so there were just, in graduating from high school, you know, there were just a lot of things that I was trying to focus on and do well, and then also just trying to be a teenager, because I wasn't normal, and I wasn't like everybody else, so I had to try really hard to fit in and to be normal, I guess. And so I was more worried about those things than really preparing for aging out. But it was really scary because you don't know what's the relationship with my foster home, you know, with my foster mom going to be like afterwards. You know, it was a big fear of, well, they don't have to be my foster mom anymore, or they don't have to be my CASA volunteer or my caseworker, you know. And so it was, you didn't know what those relationships, and the only relationships you really had, what they were going to be like then afterwards.
So essentially you were alone.
Yeah, those were the things that I worried about. I did go to the local community college at first, and I was not ready, and I wasn't prepared. No one told me, you know, you need to go to class and you need to do these things, and I still was trying to be everybody's friend, but I was scared to death, and everybody kind of pulled away. You know, I was still a state ward when I first went to college, but everybody wanted to see how I did, and so everybody just kind of held back, and I just felt completely abandoned and alone, and I think part of it was just me not knowing or having the skills to reach out at that time. I didn't know how to call somebody up and ask for help, or just call in and say, how are you? You know, and so they felt that I was pulling away as well. So, but I ended up dropping out of college because I met this boy who was going to take care of me forever, and he ended up being a very unhealthy boy, and when my caseworker, because I was still a state board, my caseworker found out about it. They did some background checks on him and found that he really wasn't a good guy, and so they ended up, it was awful, but they ended up finding me and putting me in a shelter until I turned 19. And then when I was 19, I was just kind of out. I do have to say, my caseworker fought really hard to get me some stability. They said that they made a deal with me. We'll help you get set up if you promise not to go back to him. And I said, sure, why not? So they helped me get a car and get an apartment and get me back into college. And those things happened, and they set me up, and everything was great. And then I was 19, and everybody was gone. So I only lasted about a month living in an apartment by myself, feeling so disconnected from the world, and I just spiraled out of control. I actually ended up trying to commit suicide, and just because I didn't know what to do, and I didn't know how to, I just felt like I didn't have any hope. Luckily, I didn't succeed, and was able to kind of pull myself out of that, but that was a big shock for everybody. One, because I didn't tell them that I was struggling, that I felt so alone, that there were some things that were going on. I was kind of being harassed by my biological mom's husband, and nobody knew kind of the terrible things that were happening to me, and so they were shocked that I would do that and be so selfish to do that, and so it hurt a lot of people. And after you do something like that, you have to go to treatment for a while, and so after that, I tried to live with my biological dad, who again I had just met. We didn't really have a relationship, and that didn't work out. So I lived in my car for a while, and ended up not enjoying living in my car, and moved back in with that very unhealthy boy. And we were together for a while. Beat me up so bad that I ended up in the hospital. And at some point in all of that, I just realized that I was not who I wanted to be, or where I wanted to be with my life. And so
What was the turning point for you?
I've been asked that before, and I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was fear, part of it, just being, I can't do this, I can't handle this kind of relationship. I'm not sure what it was, but I left in the middle of the night, and I moved into a hotel, and I lived in hotels for a few months. And I worked at one of the hotels, and I worked at Applebee's, and I just worked really hard to get myself on my feet. And I just always was very blessed with random people in my life who were really good people.
Yeah.
I ended up getting connected with a group here in Nebraska. It's called the Nebraska Foster Youth Council, and it was just getting started up, and it was just a group of other kids and young adults who had been in foster care or who were in foster care wanting to get together and say there's something wrong here and what can we do about it, and to be a support for each other. And they were tremendous for me. I just kind of latched onto them as a family, and started to really pull myself back together, and saved up enough money to move into an apartment, and from there saved up enough money to move to Lincoln, and went to college, went back to college. I moved in with people I didn't even know. I just rented a room, and I just kind of just kept going, and I really believe that God was just kind of carrying me for quite a while. Wasn't anything great that I did, and ended up getting super involved with this youth council, and the foundation, it's called the Nebraska Children and Families Foundation. The Foster Youth Council was a program of theirs, and they had an internship open, and I ended up getting the internship. That was 6 years ago, and I am still there.
Wow.
But it's the longest phone number I've ever had my whole life has been at this organization.
Mm-hmm.
Just little things like that mean the world to me. It was my financial stability, because I finally had a regular paycheck. But then I was just blessed with the people there who were really amazing people, who I could use as role models. And I don't think they had any idea how much I was watching them and learning from them constantly. But in that time, I was also able to mend my relationship then with my foster family and keep in contact with my CASA volunteer. She, when you're in terrible relationships or you're homeless, it's shameful. You're scared of what people are going to think of you because you did so good. I did so good in high school, and I tried so hard, and they thought they prepared me and that I was going to do good, and to not be doing well, I felt like I was a disappointment to them. And so I really cut myself off from everybody until I got back on my feet. And when I was sitting in my office with the internship, the first person I called was my CASA volunteer. And I just said, I have a job, and I have an office, and I live in Lincoln, and I'm working with the youth council, and she's the one who kind of had gotten me connected with them. And so it was wonderful to then have those people to lean on. So, yeah.
Was she your hero?
Yes, she is, but I've had a lot of heroes. I really, again, I've been just really blessed with really amazing people. My foster mom, she's definitely a hero.